Could you maybe share more about that from the product side and what that like experience is like for kids?
Yeah, so rooms, so we'll start with clubs. So clubs are sort of like what you would expect from a community-oriented group where kids can share text, photos, videos, audio of things they're working on, projects they're doing. We have a library of projects that kids can also do. So they can say like, hey, I want to like I want to invent something. I want to go like build a solar oven that like uses like the sun to basically heat up something and cook it. And so we'll tell them like, hey, here's the materials that you need, or here's, what you need to do to go do that. Or maybe they're like, hey, I want to like learn how to build a video game. And so we teach them, we have project guides for like how to like go on Scratch and like learn how to code. Scratch is like a visual block-based programming language. Code your first video game. And so we have enough structure there that they can kind of get started on whatever they're interested in, but it's not enough structure that it suffocates them. And so they can actually do whatever they want. And so we have kids that invent their own projects. They're like sharing things that they're working on that are totally outside of the scope of like the club. But it's great because it ends up inspiring other kids. They start collaborating. And so that was the first thing we shipped. And then we realized that kids really wanted like real-time experiences. And so that's when we built rooms. And so rooms are, think of rooms like a canvas area where kids can, it's almost like a very primitive game engine where there's all sorts of different interaction modes. So kids can like, you can have like something like some sort of image or visual object on the screen, and then kids can make decisions based on that. And so you could say like, hey, a very, very basic example would be like, hey, here's a math problem. Like, what's the answer? That doesn't really happen in primer, but that's one very basic thing. A much more complex one would be like, hey, here's a bunch of information about this mystery or about this. Here's how this business is doing. Do you think that the business should invest more in increasing their inventory or increasing marketing spend or buy an insurance policy, or how would you allocate this like $500 they have in their budget? And then kids can select and vote and decide and sort of build consensus around what they want to do. And then based on what they decide, the rest of the room actually changes. And there's things about it that shift in the logic of how the room works. And so it's sort of this like immersive experience. There's no video, it's audio only for kids. And it's been really cool. So we first Primer developed all the content in rooms, and now we're actually like letting kids develop content too. And so now there's like one kid is running a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan club where they basically dissect and talk about like the plots in all these different Marvel movies. And so kids that are interested in like making movies or writing books or into comics, they all get together and they're basically like learning about like what like the best, the best of the best looks like, and sort of talking about it. We have another one that's an art-oriented club that meets all the time, and so kids get together like multiple times a week, and they're sharing drawings, they're giving each other feedback, they're doing art swaps where they like sort of decide to draw something for the other person. And so there's a lot of different like cool emergent behavior that's happening, and that's the stuff that like we're really leaning into. And so far less interested in like how can Primer become the place that like creates the best learning experience for kids, and how can Primer become the place that empowers kids to have the best learning experiences, whether we're creating them or whether they're creating them. And so that's kind of what happens like in clubs and rooms.